see on my screen, Dr. Ma Jun. And I was joking. I go, I bet you Ma Jun is going to be in a car and we're going to catch him going someplace because he's almost omnipresent. If we could clone him and put him in 10 places at the same time, he'd need to be in 20 places. So in some ways, we're very lucky that we've only got one of him, and we've got the one, Dr. Ma Jun, with us. Ma Jun, great to see you. We've had a really great discussion so far, but the one area that we really haven't talked about, which is your area of expertise. Look, there is not a global policy, nothing that you haven't been a part of in the last 10 years, whether it be on taxonomies, whether it be on carbon credits, whether it be on disclosure, green finance. You have been basically omnipresent in the global discussion. And the discussion today is really about voluntary carbon credits. We may at some point move into compulsory, but the importance of having a carbon credit market, and want to know if you could share with people what you've been seeing in the global policy side, what your views are on carbon credit markets, the importance, and anything else that you'd like to contribute on this. But anyway, lovely to see you, and we're going to hand over the screen to you, Ma Jun.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. You hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Great. Now, maybe just a quick update on what's going on at the G20 level, which, Michael, you know so well. We both co-chaired the G20 Green Finance Study Group from 2016, 2018. But this year, the study group is co-chaired by myself, representing China, and Larry from US Treasury. And we have upgraded this study group to a working group. So this year, it's been a bigger job because we need to form the global consensus on roadmap. As you probably know, that the roadmap was published yesterday after being endorsed by the G20 leaders. Now, from the roadmap, let me just highlight a couple of things. I think the most important message is that we need to move towards comparability, interoperability, and consistency of global sustainable finance standards, including taxonomies and disclosure requirements. So there are a lot of reference on how taxonomies should gradually converge, and how an internationally consistent set of reporting standards should be developed by ISSB. So I won't get into too much detail of that, but I think it's important ask you actually read the roadmap, which will guide the G20 and many IOs work in the coming few years. But back to your question on voluntary carbon markets, most of you know that Mark Carney kicked off this idea of a task force on voluntary carbon markets, and recently this task force has formed a new governance body, which will have a new name. I think they have not announced the new name yet. I am on the board of this new governance body, and going forward, this governance body will convene, more experts to develop a set of high integrity principles for voluntary carbon markets. And my colleagues in Asia, they are contributing to different working groups already. And we're hopeful that the application of the carbon credit carbon markets around the world, I'm hopeful that in different time zones, there will be one or two voluntary carbon markets. I know Singapore is already developing one, and I think Hong Kong is thinking about doing something like that. That serves the sort of the Asian time zone, but we certainly need a few more. They're covering, the UK time zone, covering the US, Latin American time zone. And globally, I'm hoping that all these voluntary carbon markets should be using similar standards, if they are not identical, with the same framework at least. developed by the Task Force of the Voluntary Carbon Markets. And I'm also hopeful that the carbon credits developed by major industries that can reduce carbon or absorb carbon or remove carbon, for example, in forestry, in renewable energy, and in carbon capture technology application areas can be included. So that's probably what I want to share in my first go.
Okay.
Back to you, Michael.